we have 28 Days Later. This post-apocalyptic horror film came out in 2002 and showed a society completely breaking down after the accidental release of a high contagious virus. Sounds a little too familiar, doesn't it? Well, a man named Jim wakes up from a coma after a month and he finds out that his city is completely deserted. How did he live a month without dying? I'm not sure. Moviegoers watch the struggle of 4 survivors who are completely isolated and trying to cope with the destruction, all while avoiding those who are infected with the virus. Again, why do we relate so much to this movie? But it's not just a virus like COVID-19 that have similar symptoms to the flu. The virus has them turning into zombies, so they aren't just self-isolating away from other humans, they're hiding from zombies looking for their next victim to infect. Can you imagine if COVID-19 actually turned you into a zombie? Is there a such thing as a real life zombie? Next up, number 9 is A Quiet Place. This horror movie puts a unique twist on the genre, and it was so successful that they actually made a sequel. I thought the movie was pretty scary. The movie was actually set to come out in 2020, but we all know what's going on with the movies. I mean, you can't even go to the movie theaters. It was one of the first things actually shut down. It sucks. We all remember Tom Hanks in Australia filming. He got the COVID-19 virus, and they just shut down Hollywood after that. Well, with this production being put on hold because of the pandemic, fans may not be able to see it as soon as they hoped to. And who knows if movies are just gonna skip past the theaters and just become available on Blu-ray or maybe on Netflix. Maybe they'll sign a deal with Netflix. If you haven't seen the horror film, well, it follows the story of a family struggling to survive, just like how we're kind of struggling to survive right now. Well, they're struggling to survive in a post-apocalyptic world, which has been taken over by extraterrestrial creatures. The creatures are blind, but they have an acute sense of hearing, so the family members have to live in complete silence, because if the creature hears you, well, they will kill you. The whole movie has viewers on the edge of their seat as they watch the family completely isolated from the rest of the humanity, not even knowing if there's other people out there who has survived. They think maybe they're the last survivors. Their survival becomes extra personal because they lost one of their sons to the vicious creature. Coming number 8 is 10 Cloverfield Lane. After going through a breakup with her boyfriend, a girl named Michelle packs up and heads to New Orleans. It all sounds like a good idea until she hears on the radio that blackouts have been reported in some major cities. She ends up losing control of her car and gets into an accident that knocks her unconscious. When she wakes up, she finds herself isolated in a bunker with 2 random men. They tell her that the outside world has a massive chemical attack that poisoned the air, so that they're self-isolating to protect themselves. So the entire movie, you think that they saved her life, but then plot twist, the outside world isn't actually poisoned. Cruising in at number 7, we have The Mist. The movie came from the legendary author Stephen King, who first wrote the novel in 1980. This guy has been writing for decades, and so many of his books are movies. Just like this one, this book was turned into a horror movie in 2007. The movie plot revolved around members of a small town in Maine who experienced a blackout after severe thunderstorms. A father and a son headed to the supermarket the next day to stock up on supplies, but then a mysterious thick layer of mist takes over the town and conceals vicious monsters that they need to hide from. As the mist gets thicker, tensions arise amongst the town for people to isolate and survive. People get selfish and only care about their own survival, almost like the way that people have been stocking up on toilet paper and hand sanitizer. I mean, I can't find me some hand sanitizer. Next up, number 6 is Wreck. This Canadian horror film came out in 2011 and starred Adrian Brody, who took on the role in the isolation plot. After a car accident, he finds himself pinned to the seat of a destroyed car that's stranded in the wilderness. He gains consciousness. He then realizes that both of the passengers are dead, making him completely isolated on his own. But because of the crash, he started to suffer from memory losses, and physical injuries forced him to remain in the car. His right leg is broken and stuck between the dashboard and the door. He starts to suffer from amnesia and struggles to distinguish between what's reality and what is a paranoid fantasy that is in his mind. He has to fight off wild animals, and once he's able to pry his leg free after a few days, he has to try to find other people to try to seek help. Ultimately, his isolation is his biggest demise because his hallucinations keep him from acting rationally and doing what he actually needs to do to survive. We're halfway through this list, and number 5, we have Cabin in the Woods. The 2011 movie told us a story of a group of people who actually chose to isolate themselves from the rest of society. A group of college students decided to go to a remote forest cabin that's isolated in the middle of the woods, hence the title, Cabin in the Woods. It doesn't get more straightforward than that, but while they're isolating themselves on what they thought would be like a little fun getaway, well, it turns into them falling victim to flesh-eating zombies. Throughout the movie, they're trying to survive the zombies in isolation, but at the end, the audience finds out that they're actually a lot more isolated than they even knew. The woods that they're staying in is actually being manipulated and controlled from an underground facility. So even if they do get close to finding a way out, it's impossible because the world around them is actually in the technician's control. Here at number 4 is The Perfect Sense. The unique film was actually a fiction romantic drama, but the movie plot itself naturally feels like a horror movie when you're watching it. A virus causes an epidemic to spread throughout the world, which causes humans to lose their sensory perceptions one by one. If you think about it, that sounds like a complete nightmare. There is nothing romantic about that. The story focuses on 2 people, Susan and Michael, who met during the pandemic and built a relationship through the isolation process. Because everyone starts to lose their senses, it creates an outbreak of irrational panic, anxiety, and rage, and people try to adapt to the loss and survive the outbreak. Taking our number 3rd spot, one of my all-time favorites, we got Dawn of the Dead. The movie came out back in 2004 and told the story of human survivors who get isolated in a shopping mall after the world breaks out in zombies. It made for an epic movie plot as the audience watched the survivors split up into groups to secure the mall. The battle between trying to see if there's other survivors outside of the mall, but they also want to isolate to avoid the zombies. By the end of the movie, they were able to escape the mall and travel by a bus to a marina where they can all flee the city on a yacht. But at the end of the movie, footage from a camcorder is found on a boat and shows the group of survivors running out of supplies and arriving at an island that is actually attacked by a swarm of zombies. The camcorder signal drops by the time we find out their fate, which is a classic way to leave your audience guessing. Snipping the number 2 spot on our list is I Am Legend. Some would say it's Will Smith's best work. When comparing all of his movies, he has a lot of great movies out there. The movie came out in 2007 and has been marked as a classic ever since. The story is set in New York City where a virus breaks out, and this is after it was originally created to cure cancer. The virus has wiped out the majority of mankind, leaving Will Smith's character as the last human survivor in New York. Can you imagine being the only one? That's isolation to an extreme level. I mean, I'm going crazy just staying at my house and not being able to go out. It's been like 2 weeks and I'm driving myself nuts. I'm driving everyone else in this house nuts. All right, finally, number 1, we have the Netflix movie Contagion. The movie came out in 2011, but recently it's the only movie people are talking about because it's oddly similar to what our world is going through right now. It's no secret that the world right now is self-isolating due to the coronavirus that broke out in China and spread across the globe. The plot follows actress Gwyneth Paltrow, who gets a virus while on a trip to China and brings it to the US with her. And this causes a national pandemic. Throughout the movie, you watch the disease that takes the lives of others, you see society completely falling apart, and you see the introduction to a vaccine to try and stop the spread. It's very similar to what we're going through right now, which is why it's one of the top trending on Netflix. And I know here in Canada it was like the number 1 or number 2 most trending. It might have been behind Tiger King. Let me know if you guys have watched that. It's really good. I think I binge watched it in a day and a half. I mean, what else am I going to do? Everyone's just at home. Netflix is probably making a lot of money right now, other than not having the ability to create new shows because I'm sure production is shut down. But Netflix is still up and it's still running, and I'm sure there's a lot more viewership going on right now. Well, there you guys have it. I was your host, Landon Dalletsing. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I apologize for just the video over, the audio over, and you guys aren't seeing me. I'm filming at home, and I hope to get back to like normal life very, very soon. I love filming on the green screen with all the guys at the studio. It's a whole lot of fun. But that's it for me on this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next most amazing top 10 video.